So I'm going to show you the files that I use from the Mystery of History Companion Guide. And I have an older copy, so it's actually on a disc, but this is the same thing that you can download from Mystery of History. Since my children are older, they're 12 and 15, I'm going to show you the things that we use for their history notebooks. So I'm going to open up the PDF files, and the first thing that we open is these whole sections of each quarter, which include all of the different suggested activities that you can do. Let me just show you what it looks like. So this is quarter one. It comes with a pre-test before each week's activities. Lesson one will show you different suggested activities that you can do. We do some of these we don't. It depends on the lesson. And so this will show you all the different things that you can do to further expand. Then lesson two has the same thing. And then there's the review, which we do every bit of every time. So the Wall of Fame is what you'll put on your timeline, whether you use timeline figures or just write it in. And I'll show you our timeline in a little bit. And then somewhere in time is just the maps, doing the geography part, which we always do. So she gives you specific instructions for your geography. And then to follow it up, it has some sort of quiz or exercise. So each week is 3 lessons. So there you go. And then you see it goes into week 2, pre-test. And then it continues on the different activities, and then back to the review again. So I always use this and put the suggestions like you see right here in my teacher notebook, and then I make a copy of each of the reviews like this one for my students and put one in each of their notebooks. Okay, let's go back. I'm not very good at this yet. Okay, so there's quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I just print one at a time because the quizzes are mingled in with the suggested activities. That means part of what prints out in that file, it goes in my notebook, and part goes in my kids' notebooks. That's my least favorite part of this PDF setup, and so I do have to sit and separate those. Okay, the next thing is I go ahead and print out the supplemental book and resources. This is one of my favorite parts, and it gives me all the suggestions for books and movies that I could ever want, and many more. So first, you'll see something that is suggested for the whole semester, topic resources. And of course, this one is based on the Reformation, and so all of the suggestions are going to kind of go along with that. This book focuses on the Renaissance and the Reformation, and so she has at first art history, music, Reformation, church history. So these suggestions for books will be good throughout the semester. And then we begin early American history in this book as well. And then she does something that I love, which is to recommend time period classics. So if you've read anything I've ever written, you know that I love to read books that go along with our history, and that includes the classics. So the nonfiction and the fiction go well together, and so she's given a really good list of that. And then primary source materials are my favorite. So we have an example here, Christopher Columbus's journals, writings by Leonardo da Vinci, original books by Erasmus, Machiavelli, Martin Luther, and on and on. And so, man, these are one of my favorite things to use for history. And I absolutely recommend that you don't skim past these, because this is how your kids know what really happened. And then the miscellaneous resources include fun things like the Usborne books, which I love, cookbooks, coloring books, all kinds of fun extra things. And these also will be stuff that you'll use a lot longer than one lesson. And then we have lesson by lesson resources. And so this is what I consult as I'm planning ahead to see what books we might read. And I'll make my list from here. So you see lesson 1 is on the Wars of the Roses, and it gives you a lot of recommendations that you can choose from. And I never use them all, ever, ever, ever. But I like to see what might be useful for our family. Obviously, my kids are older, so most of what we use is from the older section, but actually we use a lot from the middle student section too. So there's one about the Medicis, and then we've got Ferdinand, Isabella, and the Inquisition. And so definitely use this. This is the book list that people always want. Okay. I also print the outline maps. Sorry for my slow little CD-ROM drive that's hooked up to the computer. It takes a second. This is geography. It's already included in the lessons. And so you can see each one has a number on it, and she will reference this in the lessons. So map 1, Europe. For some reason, there's a blank page in between each one of these. Russia. And the world. So I print one set of blank outline maps for each of my kids. And then I go back, review answer key maps right here. And I print a whole set of these for my teacher notebook. And it will help me to see exactly what they are supposed to be writing on their maps. So typically you're labeling the countries in the water. But that's what the answer key maps look like. And they're very helpful for me, but I also will sometimes even let my kids just copy that, especially if it's a region that they're not familiar with, or with ancient history, it was kind of tricky knowing what something used to be called and trying to figure out exactly where the borders were, things like that. So I am not opposed to even letting my kids look at the answer key maps to get something just right. So what I showed you already is the companion guide, and there are other things that I order separately from the Mystery of History website. And so I'll show you a couple of those. She just recently released planning pages for each volume, which is so cool. So this is what they look like. So from 1 week, you get all 3 lessons, 1, 2, and 3. It tells you what it's about, and then it even gives you a little checklist to remember to use. So memory cards, timeline figures, and then the maps, the exercise, and then down here or over here is where you can write down the other things you want to do. So this little box right here is almost not big enough for me to write what I would do extra, but I can use this notes box too, and I'll show you a finished version of that too. Anyway, these planning pages are really very helpful. And then let's go to the challenge cards. I love these, and we definitely use them. The trickiest part about these challenge cards is printing them, but I followed my instructions. And you want typically cardstock, and you want to print front and back. Whatever your printer says to do for front and back printing, follow those instructions carefully, or send the file to a print shop where they know how to do it. But we use these every single lesson and review as much as we've learned up until that point. So in my notes that I usually share with my blog readers, I will say review lessons 1 through 30 or whatever the numbers are, because this is what makes it stick in your kid's head. So I really love these little memory flashcards. And then I always use the notebooking pages, and I want to show you what those look like. If I can open up that file. So I order these from the Mystery of History website too, every time we start a new volume. There are several versions of this, so I'm going to show you each one. The first one is for younger writers, and it has the actual handwriting paper. So for each lesson, you get a page for them to take a few notes, or you can even tell your little kids what to write. Obviously, younger children will need a little help with that. You can write something on the chalkboard, or let them choose to write their own notes. Every kid is a little bit different, but these are for the youngest kids. Older writers can take notes, so it's just blank lines, very similar. Then there's fillable, so you can actually put whatever you want with your computer. You can type things in if you prefer. Or, like me, if you have a kid that loves to type, you could let them type it. I haven't done that before. I stick to just printing them out and letting my kids write, but that is another option. All right, information pages. This is what I actually use now. So this is a good way. It helps my kids to review, basically. It's kind of like a worksheet. And for the two that I have left at home, these are helpful. So instead of them winging it with notes, I let them answer the questions. And then, of course, there's an answer key for that in case you think, well, I'm not sure what they're supposed to write. So these are the notebooking pages, and there's several options for you to use. On the these, you can also use this for copy work, and so sometimes I have actually printed this plus the ones with the questions so that my kids have a place to write down copy work, and that's a great idea too. So then basically you have 2 printed pages for each lesson. That's just another really cool way to use them, but I love how she gives many options for just these notebooking pages. So I'm going to show you how I find the different things on the Mystery of History website. So I usually go to course, no curriculum, and I go to whichever volume I need and shop. So in this case, we're doing volume 3. Now, it's also called Renaissance History. So I'm going to check that one and narrow it down to just the ones I need. All right, so first here you see the Student Reader and Companion Guide. This is the book, which I use. And then the companion guide is, in this case, I believe it's a download. You can also get the audio MP3s to listen to. So if you don't want to read aloud, don't have time, or if your kids are going to do this more independently, then you can listen to the audio version. All right, so let's go back up. I highly recommend everything she recommends. So an atlas of the world is a very helpful tool with your geography. This is where you buy the planning pages. It's a digital download, $7. You can buy the print companion guide, and it looks like you can get the print or the download. Yep, so that's kind of cool if you just want to make copies. I just prefer to have it downloaded the second I want it. So if I don't have a copy of the companion guide or didn't buy my book new, then I'll go in here and purchase it. There's the audiobook. These are the timeline figures. I did use these, but now my kids are older and they just want to write in the timeline, which is fine. So They're really cool, these timeline figures. I love them. But I also let my kids choose this part. You can download a free sample. In fact, there's a free sample of a lot of her products here. So definitely look into those. This is the master collection of timeline figures for volumes 1 through 4, which is a good deal. All right, this is a timeline notebook similar to what I have. So I just print timeline pages on cardstock, and I'll show you those, and my kids put them in their binder. This is a suggested placement guide. I don't use that. This is if you really want some help figuring out how to set up your timeline. Let's see. Okay, and then page 2 of these products, challenge cards. This is one of the things that I showed you that I definitely purchase. It's the quiz cards that you print on cardstock, front and back. Coloring pages. I have used these before when my kids were younger, and I really like them. If you have older and younger kids, or you have older kids that like to keep their hands busy and doodle or whatever, the coloring pages are really good. So each page has 3 lessons covered, if you can see here, 1, 2, 3. So they can put that in their notebook in place of notes, or like I said, use them in addition to notes. This is where you purchase the notebooking pages that I showed you. And that's funny. This cover is for coloring pages, but this is the notebooking pages. And again, you can print free samples. Folder books. This is what we also call lap books. And I love them. I love them. My kids have used them. We're not using them this year, but I will show you how we add this to our notebook. But this is, if you look at this picture, it's using file folders to make a book, and you use this as a form of review. And it's really fun for kids that need something hands-on, because they're cutting and gluing and writing, and they're making their own little book of review. So you can do it with the lessons, or you can do it, you know, every couple of weeks as a review. I really think they're fun. I've used lap books for a lot of reasons for a lot of years with my kids. So if you need a hands-on activity, or you have kids that are maybe 10 and under, this is a really great addition to your Mystery of History. This is the Super Supplemental Collection, which basically has a whole bunch of things in one bundle. So you get the challenge cards, coloring pages, notebook pages, and folder books. I have bought these bundles in the past, and it is a money saver. So if you're going to use a lot of the things on this website, do it with this discount. And Wonder Maps. I have never used this, so I cannot actually speak about it, but like I said, I recommend everything that she does. So explore the website and figure out what is going to work for your family. The nice thing about Mystery of History is that it's so adaptable to all ages. So the next thing I do is when I print out everything, I lay it out. So here we have the notebooking pages, the one with answers, the one without, maps with answers and without, planning pages, and then companion guide, books and resources, and then all 4 quarters of the notebooking information. For myself and each student, I get a big 3-inch 3-ring binder because you need a lot of space in these binders. This is mine now, and I also get a set of divider tabs. So for the kids, I get one with a set of 5. For mine, it's actually got a set of 8, and sometimes I use all 8, sometimes I don't, and I'll explain mine in just a minute. For each student notebook, I will check my planning page, and then I'll add the notebooking pages. And I apologize because my printer was running out of ink when I did this. And the quiz and whatever maps are required. And of course, all of this can be found here because it tells you the memory cards, timeline figures, mapping, quiz, and then of course this is from the companion guide where you can choose to do extra activities. So I will put these three together in the notebook for my kids so that they don't have to flip through a bunch of tabs. This is the timeline that we use. It is a printable download PDF from Masterbooks, and the link is in my all of the blog posts that I have about Mystery of History. But we have kept this same one going since volume 1, so it actually starts back here. And we started with these timeline figures, but this particular child did not want to use them. He preferred to write his own stuff in, and he didn't always keep up with it when he's supposed to. But anyway, we've been using the same one all the way through, so I just transfer it into each new notebook that we do. And then I just recently printed out the newest pages, so it looks like this. And so we barely added anything to it. This was from volume 2, the last few lessons. Anyway, I printed on cardstock, double-sided, and then we'll just keep adding to it as we go. And then when we do volume 4, I'll print out the last section. I just don't do the whole thing at once. So the student notebook looks like this. I just make a photocopy of the front of the book so that they know where we are, which volume this notebook is, because I actually save all of their notebooks just for fun. So I put these hard plastic dividers in. The first section is the notebooking pages where they take notes from the lessons. Then the second section is the timeline. The third section we haven't started using yet, and I'm not sure what we'll do. And then I also give them a whole space for notebook paper. This is where they will do copy work or occasional other assignments for the lessons. And then if they do copy work for the lessons, I'll have them move that sheet behind the lesson. But I wanted to show you how also we do the lessons. So this is the Wars of the Roses flip book. Oh, he taped it shut. So another lesson page, notebook page, notebooking. And then for the maps, I try to put the maps with the lessons. So this one has to do with the first several lessons. And then there was the quiz, pre-test, which is just kind of gauging to see what they know before they learn it. And then again, there's another notebooking page. This was another activity from the companion guide. I like these because it's a sort of review. So it's one thing to hear the lesson and take a few notes. It's another thing to reinforce that with some of the hands-on activities that are visual. So I like to do some of them. Anyway, and then again, there'll be maps as needed. And then here is my teacher notebook. Mine's in a black binder just so that it looks different from the kids. And here's how I've set mine up. This is the planning pages where I choose the different things that we will do, and I write notes for whatever our plans are. Each one covers 3 lessons or a week. And so I go through and try to look ahead and plan what I'm going to do. The next section is resources. This is the list of extra books and things that you can read from the companion guide. And I showed you earlier how I choose and print those out. I use a lot of sticky notes for bookmarks so that I can easily flip to right where we are. So when, like we just did, Ivan the Great, so I'll actually move my sticky note, but this gives me all the ideas for different books or movies or even websites to use with each lesson. The next tab is the lessons. So I have the pre-test here, suggested activities. I just decided to put them all in here so that I didn't have to go find them elsewhere. So it took a little extra time, but I actually just separated everything the way I needed it in my notebook. And so this will show me some of the options. This is the flip book that we made for the Wars of the Roses. I don't do them all. I just pick and choose what looks good to us. Lesson 2, lesson 3, and then the notebooking pages themselves with the answers for me. So there's the first 3 or the first week. And then this will remind me what needs to go on the timeline. And somewhere in time is the geography. So it shows us what to do on the maps. And then any other, you can decide what kind of geography lessons you need for your kids. And then for some reason, I left out the quiz that the kids do at the end of a week that has the answers on it. I'm not sure why I did that, so I'll have to go back and print those out. But then it goes into week 2, pre-test. Once again, the activities. And these are suggested activities. You don't have to do them all. There's a lot. And then back to the notebooking pages. And you can see I've got a sticky note there for my notebook. The next section I have in my notebook is maps. So mine have the answer key, what the children need to write. Sometimes they're pretty good at geography now because they've been doing it for a while. So sometimes I'll just say, okay, label the countries. But if they need help, then I'll just turn this map around so they can look at it, because every lesson is not a test. Every lesson is sometimes just learning something new, or even reminding them of something they've learned but haven't memorized yet. So I'm not opposed to letting them look at my answer maps to see where the answers go. The rest of this I have not completed yet, but I'm going to be adding my Texas history curriculum to this too, so it may go back there. But that's how I've set up my teacher book, and so I just set this in front of me each day when I teach. I go over any notes that I made on the planning pages, and then I flip to the lesson for that day, and then open the reader and start reading aloud. So here's an example of the challenge cards for volume 3. They're on cardstock, and they're printed so that I can just turn them over. Each one tells you what lesson it's from, so you can keep them in order. And each lesson may have 3 or 4 questions. And what I do with these is typically at the end of the lesson, I will quiz, let's say it was lesson 4. I will do the quiz cards, and then I will actually go back to the beginning and do all the quizzes. Maybe not every card, but I will ask a couple of questions from each lesson. So there's lesson 3, lesson 2, and lesson 1. Just because I don't want to just read a lesson and move on with life. I want them to review constantly, and this is a fun, easy way to do it. So that's the tour of our notebooks for Mystery of History. I hope this has been helpful for you. And please go to NikkiTruesdale.com and see my full page called How We Use Mystery of History for all the details.